Hello and welcome to the third podcast of Housing Geospatial, the podcast where we discuss anything and everything that relates to either housing or geospatial, preferably if there's a little bit of both. Housing Geospatial was formed as we believe that place matters for social housing and that geospatial information is woefully underrepresented within the housing sector. This series is around sharing a collective knowledge within the housing sector. You can find us on either our group page on LinkedIn or head on over to our website at www.housinggeospatial.co.uk. I'm your host, Chris Kinnear, and for today's guest, we are joined by the fantastic Luke Angwin, who is the GIS lead at Aster Group. Hello, Luke. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello.
How did you get involved in housing and/or geospatial?
It was mainly just by chance, really. A family member saw the job being advertised and said, "I think you might be good at this." So I applied, was successful, and the rest is kind of history.
And so that was your startings at Aster, was that?
Yes, yeah. So it was a GIS admin role, no prior experience necessary. So yeah, that was kind of it, really.
Oh, nice. And how about geospatial? How did you get? Was that how you got involved in geospatial as well, or did you know anything about geospatial prior?
No, nothing prior. I was always relatively good with computers, like geography, geology, that sort of thing. So yeah, it just sort of fitted.
Wow. So you started off as a GIS admin, and you've risen to the ranks of GIS lead at Asda. Can you tell us more about that geospatial journey that you've had?
Yes. You could describe it as organic. Others may be less kind and describe it as blundering. But yeah, obviously, as I said, started with no prior experience, and I've worked alongside a couple of GIS people for probably a year or so, and in that time they left, and then I was on my own. So yeah, it was quite an organic learning process. No real formal training. A couple of consultancy days here and there with some of our like Esri people, but yeah, kind of just learning as I go, really. So yeah, hence why I sort of describe it as organic. But yeah, there had previously been sort of Python scripts set up, and yeah, when some of them went wrong, it was a case of having to learn quite quickly. But yeah, it's been interesting. Maybe not the most traditional way, but it's worked, and hopefully I've progressed how we use GIS at Aster along the way.
Oh, awesome news. So obviously, yeah, so you started as the role, and then you said there were two others, and then you were on your own.
Yeah.
What changed at Aster for that to happen? Was it just organic that they left? Was there a restructure?
The first one was to do with mergers. Second one was just sort of natural. Just moved on to a different sort of job, and I was there and could do kind of enough to make a go of things. So yeah.
And are you on your own still? Have you got other people now joining you?
So in 2019, I was made GIS manager, and we then brought in GIS administrator, and then they became GIS officer, and then we've still got that role now.
Oh, that's
which is
awesome.
nice.
So it's
Nice
great
that I
to
got
hear
a bit of support as well, and
Yeah.
company.
Oh, yeah, because that's something that I've from speaking to others, GIS starts quite small and then does something quite good and then gets more people involved. So
But
I guess
usually
this
still stays quite small, doesn't it?
yeah, definitely at the moment it seems to be. So at the moment at Aster, you're doing what kind of geospatial activities or tasks are you doing for the business? And how widespread is it within the business?
So we've got all the general things you'd expect. We've got, obviously, we're extracting sort of properties from our housing management system, joining that up with some asset data as well. We then obviously got things like land ownership, which bread and butter for us really, and then sort of grounds maintenance contracts, which kind of, I suppose everyone's really got. If you're going to invest, you invest in the GM side of stuff just because there's big savings to be made. So yeah, but we've got the usual stuff.
How much do you reckon your savings are from grounds maintenance? Do you have any idea or any oversight of that?
Not really, because we've been doing it for so long that the sort of contracts that always have been priced for from our GM from our GIS plans for probably at least 10 years. So I wouldn't like to even hazard a guess at how much we've probably saved in that time, but it'll be a lot, I would have thought.
Yeah, I was talking to someone, so Justin Chamberlain, he reckoned 20 years ago he saved over £130,000 a year or something, he was saying.
Okay.
And that was back 20 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
And like you saying, with asset management, land ownership, these were the big three that he was able to do very quickly and effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So based kind of that, I guess, in that sense, which department do you believe is currently getting the greatest return on investment by using geospatial information? Do you reckon it'll be asset management or grounds maintenance as it stands?
Probably grounds maintenance, I would have thought. But again, it's really difficult to try and quantify these things when we've been doing it for so long. We've got not really got a benchmark to say, oh, last year it was this and this year it's this much less, because we've been doing it so long. I've no idea how much it would have cost them if they hadn't used us.
To be honest, that's quite a nice position to be in, isn't it? Where geospatial has been such BAU for so long that to take it away almost seems madness in a sense.
Yeah.
And would completely derail processes.
Yes. I'd like to think people would be a little bit upset if we removed the tools that we've provided for them.
How widespread? Because you said it's a lot of asset management and grounds maintenance. Does everyone within the Aster have access to the maps?
Yes, so everyone within the whole organisation has access. So whether you're call centre, neighbourhood officer, one of our trades people, they've all got access. Anyone you can think of can access it if they want to and have the know-how.
I'll come on to that one in a bit. At the moment, you're doing something really fascinating using the Unreal Engine. Can you tell our listeners what the Unreal Engine is and how you're using it?
Yeah, so, well, I'll try. So Unreal Engine, as many people would know, is a sort of gaming engine. We're using it slightly differently. So a few years ago, we brought in a CAD function to within our department. That's grown to being involved CAD and BIM, and through that function, we are collecting point clouds of our buildings. So the team take out their laser scanner, they scan the building, bring that back in-house. That point cloud then creates a 3D model, and then that 3D model can be utilized within Unreal Engine to create an interactive view of the building. So you can click on things, you can pan around the building, you can go inside the building, and get information on all the different components within that building. The plan is that we will be looking at integrating that within our GIS platform. So that's work in progress for the next sort of, well, probably a year or so, I would imagine. But yeah, the hope is we can sort of bring the two together, which we think should be possible.
And you're using the Esri platform, aren't you, at the moment for that?
Yes. Yes.
Are they developing this themselves? Are you kind of being a pilot project for them? How's it working between Esri and the Unreal project?
Unreal is what so they have their own game engine. but they also use other game engines as well, so you can plug in different game engines. So we're hoping it should be relatively simple, not simple, but we're not sort of breaking new ground on this. So hopefully it will be a relatively easy integration. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Speak to me next year, and we'll give you an update.
So you've gone into kind of component, and the idea that you've got this free form 3D image, like the digital twin, effectively,
Yes.
that you can click on an asset. I take it you're not going to brick level; it's probably just a wall level.
Yeah, I mean there'll be some rendering on it. It won't necessarily tell you exactly how many courses of bricks there are or things like that. But it will represent. So if it is a brick wall, it would represent it as a brick wall, but it wouldn't tell you, there's a chip out of this brick that needs looking at or anything like that.
And so there's kind of double question here, isn't there? There's kind of one, how many tall buildings do you want to get into the Unreal Engine? And two, how many have you mapped so far?
Oh, that's a good question. So all of the buildings that are currently covered by the Building Safety Act have been modelled. So that's all 7 stories and above. And we will be looking to include, or well, we'll look to prioritize the others that are not part of that, but could be if it changes in the future. So I think we'll probably look to do all 4 stories and above, which will be a big exercise. I think we're talking at least 100 blocks. Currently, we've only got, I think, 5 blocks that are over 7 stories, and therefore part of the Building Safety Act, which is manageable. But yeah, if things change to 4 and above, then we might have a bit of a job on our hands.
Yeah.
But hopefully we've got sort of the knowledge in place to grow if we need to.
A kind of segue point, kind of talking about BIM, or for those who are unaware, building information management. How have you found sort of the complexities? Are you working alongside with Kobe or using Kobe data modeling? Are you using kind of Hacked have been working on a couple of things? What's the kind of data model method you've been using, and did you have to bring in external people to help you? How did you build that data model?
So we have used a bit of Kobe for certain things. Whether that's the route we go down for the foreseeable, I can't quite tell you at this stage. I think there's been some sort of guidelines for, I think there's a group called BIM for Housing, which I think might be part of Hacked. So I think we're taking some guidelines from them. I don't know how many other organizations are actually doing this for themselves in reality. So I think some of it is kind of making it up as we go along. But that's always part of the fun, isn't it?
Well, I know plenty of trying to get BIM integrated in and not having great amounts of success. Because, as we always say within each other, like if someone had resolved BIM quite early doors, everyone would be using it and applying it. And right now, I think BIM's a great topic in its own right. So you've been using the Unreal Engine. How many people are involved in that project?
Not many at this stage. Probably just a handful. It's been shown to a few others. Again, not a huge amount at this stage because it's still in its infancy. But I think over the next sort of 6 to 12 months, it will be rolled out to a wider audience, just to get some initial feedback and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's very much in its infancy at this stage.
Awesome. So you've been working on the Unreal Engine. Have you got any other current projects that you're working on at the moment? Or anything coming up?
Nothing major and nothing huge. Yeah, kind of our focus has sometimes been on some of the data behind the scenes as well. So we're looking at creating like registers based on land registry information. Some of that's been quite fun. I say fun, I use the term loosely. Most people might not consider it fun. But yeah, we've been kind of getting involved with sort of database side of things, so some SQL Server, some Power Automate as well. Power Automate's been really good. So yeah, able to download lots of land registry documents without having to do it manually. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thing that we've been doing. The Power Platform is really good for that sort of stuff. Yeah, takes a bit of getting used to. But yeah, we've been doing all sorts of random things with Power Automate Desktop and things like that normally you just wouldn't really think too much about, but it actually saves a lot of time to get it to loop through things. That's been invaluable actually. So yeah, just a lot of data side of things recently, but that's what we're here for as well. It's not just maps and pretty pictures. It's all the data that goes behind it.
I always say when I'm talking to people about GIS that a map isn't always the output.
Yeah.
I think that's a comment or a thing which is often left too far behind. You're talking about land reg data. I think this is quite applicable to I've talked about it with our previous guests, and also we've got some really interesting future guests to talk about land reg. So are you looking at purely the kind of geospatial areas, the boundaries, or are you actually looking at the titles as well and linking the spatial to the titles? And are you extracting any of the information from them as well?
So we have extracted some information from title registers. That's a bit tricky. It's all right if you're looking for specific things, but it is possible. But yeah, we've been looking at sort of the spatial relationships between our titles and our properties, so we can have a detailed register of these properties sit within these titles, and then we can look at whether those properties are leasehold or shared ownership, and then we can establish what documents that we might need to go alongside those. So ideally, we'd have every lease or shared ownership lease for all the properties we have. So yeah, it's about keeping track of that and hopefully managing that in a more controlled way than we previously have done, which has kind of been a bit ad hoc and not as organized as maybe it should be. And that then gives us the ability to have everyone within the organization will have access to all those documents through SharePoint.
That's pretty cool, to be fair. So thinking about kind of future projects, kind of if you almost had like an unlimited budget, what do you think you'd like to research? What kind of avenue would you like to do in terms of supporting your geospatial work with Aster, not just going off and doing your own thing for unlimited money, like surveying the moon or something?
As fun as that might be, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good question, and it's really tricky to come up with a good answer for it. But I think we'd probably try to do more analysis of either the point cloud information that we're getting from our BIM team, or through the use of like imagery data. So we could then analyze those images, analyze those point clouds, and use sort of machine learning to identify any issues that we might be able to pick up from that level of detail. That would be really interesting. I know it's possible. I've seen a couple of companies do it, but doing it on a large scale is obviously going to be incredibly costly if you're outsourcing that. If we could do that in-house, that would be amazing, and also probably quite fun as well. But don't tell anyone I said that.
I just think drones are awesome. I'd fly drones all day. So at the moment, you've got your asset management that you're doing a lot of work with. You're doing a lot of work with your grounds maintenance data. Is there a part of the business that you wish you could get geospatial being used more with?
We do have contact with various bits of the organization, so most people are aware of us. Whether they're aware of everything we could do, it's really difficult to say. Probably not is the answer. So yeah, I don't know if there is an answer to that question as such. But yeah, if we could sort of raise the profile, probably make me really busy, to be fair.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's really difficult to pinpoint one particular area or department that maybe doesn't make the most of us.
Yeah, I at my former housing place, I tried quite hard to get us into certain departments.
Hmm.
Some of it was quite successful, others not so much.
Yeah.
They were just like, why do I need a map, or why do I need the spatial analysis? One interesting question actually that might be one. So we've talked about asset management and grounds maintenance. In regards with new builds,
Hmm.
how is that process for you? Are you at every step of the journey with your development team? Does it all come as part of handover? How does that work at Aster?
Good question. I think every housing association that deals with lots of new builds will know that it is a particularly painful process. Um, so whether that be land registry data or ordnance survey, we're always a bit behind. And I don't think there's any way around that being a bit behind.
Mm.
We're quite lucky, so we have some development systems that mean we get property information quite early on, which means we can try and start obtaining documents fairly early on in terms of just getting the location of the site, which can sometimes be a real challenge to know where these properties are going. Especially with some of the really big estates where you're building, where, well, we're not personally building, but we're getting units that are on an estate where there's going to be 1,000+ homes built. Just pinpointing where those are is a nightmare.
Mm.
So yeah, we try and get going as early as possible so we can at least understand the vague locations of them. We've recently started georeferencing the PDFs, so the plans that we get from development, we can approximately georeference based on some of the data we already have, even if that's the free open source sort of mapping.
Mm.
So we can then get an idea of where everything is in relation to each other, and we can sort of begin to plot out where those properties are as early as possible, because that means we then can know where we want to order the Ordnance Survey master map for, without ordering excessive amounts, because obviously we're constrained financially. We don't have limitless pots of cash, so we want to get the most accurate sort of land holding or area of interest that we want. Sometimes we're lucky and we might have the land registry title early on. That's usually not the case. It's better with some of our land deed schemes because we're purchasing the land before we even have spades in the ground and that sort of thing. So we know where those are going. But yeah, it's a slow and tricky process. And sometimes we have to sort of manually hunt around for things. You become sort of a detective in this role, sort of trying to know where to get stuff from, whether that be a planning portal, a local council website, anywhere really to try and track down some of these documents. But it's all good fun. Keeps us busy, out of trouble.
Nice. Oh, we had Rebecca Dick on the other day, and she was saying to us how they use the Esri platform and they've created various apps. They've got one generic app for the business, and then they've created some certain specific apps for different departments.
Yeah.
Have you done something similar, or do you try and keep it as minimal as possible per app, or is there just one great big web map that everyone can access, and then maybe the odd little individual app as well.
Yeah, we've got one main app, and then we've got some smaller apps that we can limit permissions for and that sort of thing. So they only go out to certain people. But yeah, our main app is completely open to everyone. And then yeah, if there's a need for it, we'll create little sort of sub maps, if you like. And some of them will be based on the original sort of main map with extra feature services provided in there. But yeah, and some of them will be just sort of, they'll share the sort of base mapping, and then everything else will be different. But yeah, it just depends. We try to keep as fewer apps as possible, just because the management of that is obviously a challenge the more apps you get. So yeah, we try and make our lives simple. That's the aim anyway.
Okay, I'm just trying to think of a final good question. I've potentially got two questions, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go with the easier one first, actually.
Okay. And then depending on the answer, you might give me the second one.
No, it's fine. So OS Ordnance Survey have released loads of data through their NGD National Geographic Database project, and one of their big data sets is on buildings.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you at Aster are using any of that NGD building data, and like, do you have like national UPRNs, and kind of how you build on using external data to support your own data sets?
Yeah. So we're not currently using any of the NGD stuff. However, there is some stuff that does look quite interesting. And ultimately, we're going to have to try and weigh up, the cost of accessing that information versus the sort of reward of having that information. So there might be a few things that we're really, really interested in. But again, it's going to just come down to budgets and things like that. But yeah, certainly something we're keeping an eye on, and we'll definitely be more and more interested over the coming years, and as more and more stuff is released from them. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting.
What to you is like the most interesting bit coming out of the NGD buildings? I know there's quite a few bits which they've just released only the other month, but is there something in particular where you think we could really use this to support us at Aster?
Yeah, some of the really basic stuff, like when a property was built,
Yeah,
is surprisingly difficult to try and pin down. You'd think it was really easy. And yeah, for the more recent stuff, it is, because we built it ourselves and we've got that information within our housing management system. But for stuff we've acquired from the councils, which is quite a lot of our stock, it's really difficult to know how old some of it is. And that helps us with our planning of, when does this building need a new roof?
yeah,
Depends how old it is. I mean,
yeah,
yes, we can go out and survey it, but it would help us plan more easily if we knew when it was built.
yeah,
Because you might say, oh, a roof on that building is probably going to have a life cycle of 60 years, but the life cycle on another roof might be 90. And if we knew when it was built, we could probably apply some of those very simple calculations to work out when something might need repairing or replacing. But yeah, without it, it's really difficult. So we've estimated a lot of them, but it would be useful if we could have something else that sort of backs up that estimate.
yeah, or even challenges, I guess, to a certain degree. Like if you're saying it's 1950, but
Yeah,
OS is saying it's 1920, that's a very
yeah,
big difference,
yes,
especially for planned maintenance.
yeah, definitely.
And I guess the final question which I'll ask before we wrap this session up, what do you think are some of the challenges within geospatial within housing? That's quite a big one.
Oh, blimey. You ended on a difficult one, aren't you?
Yeah. So,
Um, I suppose one of them is just awareness, and I don't know how aware people are of geospatial, and perhaps that's our own faults for sort of, I don't know, sitting quietly in a corner and working away, and the people who really need to know will know about it, but the people who might benefit, but it's not pivotal to them, it just sort of is below their radar, isn't it? So yeah, I think awareness is a big one, because that could really propel things forward if people knew some of the things we could possibly help with. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, hopefully after this podcast series, people will start be knocking on your door, and you'll be having
Hopefully
so
not
much
too
work
many
you
of
need to
them.
employ a whole team, a fleet. That'd be the dream, wouldn't
Maybe.
it?
Well, it would be.
But Luke, thank you so much time for joining us today. It's been fascinating to hear about your journey at Aster, the work that you're doing. I'm really excited about the Unreal project. I think that's almost going to be game changing within housing, and I really eagerly await the results of how you integrate it as well. And yeah, thank you for sharing with us your thoughts and knowledge. And to everyone listening at home, thank you so much for listening in.